Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Kirk Adams talking to you from my home office in sunny Seattle, Washington. And this is my monthly live streamed webinar, which I call Supercharge Your Bottom Line Through Disability Inclusion. And today we have an expert in the area of disability inclusion and employment, Kathleen West-Evans, my dear, longtime friend and colleague. Say hi, Kathy. I'll be back to you in a minute.
Okay. Hi, this is Kathleen West-Evans, and I'm joining you from east of Seattle, a longtime partner of Kirk's. And thank you for having the conversation today, Kirk.
Yeah,
We both
perfect.
know that we supercharge the bottom line working as a team. So thank you.
That's right. So I just wanted to reflect a little bit. So Kathy is involved in the vocational rehabilitation system, which is a powerful engine for disability inclusion and employment. She'll be talking to us about how the vocational rehabilitation system works and how they work with employers and all of the resources they can bring to the table to assist people with disabilities and their employers make successful employment outcomes. But when I was at the American Foundation for the Blind, so I am the immediate past president of AFB, and I held was privileged to hold those roles and the same roles at the Lighthouse for the Blind Inc. here in Seattle, where we employed hundreds of blind and deafblind people in various business activities, including aerospace manufacturing, which was a lot of fun, making parts for all the Boeing aircraft. But when I was at AFB, when we did our strategic plan, we wanted to support blind children in education. We wanted to support older people who are visually impaired. Most people who are legally blind have become so as part of the aging process, not lived their lives as a blind person as I have. But we really decided we wanted to focus on employment because only 35% of us with significant disabilities are in the workforce. And that's compared to 70% of the general population. So as far as working age people in our country, about 70% are working. And in the folks with significant disabilities, only about 35% of us, so half. And for the official unemployment rate, people seeking work, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, if it's 4% for the general population, it will be 8% for us who are actively seeking work. So however you slice it, our outcomes in employment are half as good or twice as bad as the general population. But in preparation for designing our employment-related strategies, we did a literature review. We hired a brilliant blind researcher named Dr. Ariel Silverman. She did her doctoral work here in Seattle at the University of Washington, and now she is head of research at AFB. But we asked Ariel to do a literature review on employment, and she synthesized probably 120 different peer-reviewed research-based articles on employment. And one statistic that's really stood out for me, that among those employers who formally say some sort of statement that they are inclusive of hiring people with disabilities or proactively seeking to hire more people with disabilities, less than 10% were connected with our vocational rehabilitation system. It was 9.2% of the employers that said they want to hire disabilities were actually connected to our greatest resource for employing people with disabilities, which is our vocational rehabilitation system. So I really want to turn the microphone over to Kathy and really ask you, Kathy, to talk about three things, and I'll pop in with questions as they arise, as they occur to me. But I'd love it if you could tell our listeners and viewers, describe the vocational rehabilitation system, how it works, how funding works, how federal funds flow to the states. Would like you to talk about all of the resources that vocational rehabilitation can bring to the table in working with individuals with disabilities seeking employment and working with employers who want to successfully employ people with disabilities. So paint us the general VR picture, and then would love for you to talk about the National Employment Team. Was happily joined you all in your 2-day summit over on the Microsoft campus earlier this month. So the national employment team is very fresh and current in my mind. And then the talent acquisition portal, which is another powerful tool that people can use. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, Kathy. I'll pop back in with a question or two from time to time.
Good. Keep me on track, Kirk, because you know I get excited about this work and the
Well, it's
work that
exciting
we've done
stuff.
together.
That's right. Okay, good.
Yeah. So, the Rehabilitation Act, which funds public vocational rehab, the acronym is VR, and no, it's not virtual reality, it's vocational rehabilitation. It was funded initially in 1920 because people recognize that disability happens. You could be born with a disability, you can acquire a disability at any time during your life, but your goals are the same: employment, independence, living in your communities. And so that act was built around the person, thinking about the whole person. So, as Kirk well knows, Kirk and I work together supporting the employment of people who are deafblind here in our Seattle community. You know, you've got to think of things like, if someone doesn't drive, how do they get to and from work? It seems simple to us in the field, but not always simple. Transportation systems, navigating everything, we work hard to do that. So it's thinking about the whole person. What are their goals? What are their skill sets? What are their career aspirations? And then looking and working with business to understand their needs for talent as well as their needs to retain talent. So this system is a federal state funded system, roughly 80% federal, 20% state. It's 78.7 and 21.3 state. So I'm not going to get into those details, but the program is decided, the structure of the program is decided at the state level, understanding the states know their resources and know how to best support the success of the individual and the business. So we have 78 agencies. We're in every state, the territories, and District of Columbia. And in some states, like here in Washington, we have two states because the state has decided to have a general agency, but also an agency that specializes in serving people who are blind or have vision loss. And that may be, again, in independent living, it could be in that career track. And there's also a program for individuals who are older blind. Like Kirk says, we have a aging workforce and an aging population, and vision and hearing are two of the sensory functions that tend to be impacted by aging.
So
So
Kathy,
really looking at,
two
yes.
things. So you mentioned in our state we have two vocational rehabilitation agencies, one that focuses specifically on people who are blind, and the
Mhm.
other that addresses people with other disabilities. Now, some states only have one agency. I
Yes.
think it's something like 30 states have two and 20 have one, something like that.
Yes,
Is that
something like
roughly
that.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's decided at the state level, understanding how they're structured.
Hmm.
So, like, for example, in California, we have a combined agency.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
the other thing, I don't know if it was at your summit or somewhere else, but I just recently heard the statistic that the fastest growing age group entering employment, people over 75.
Yes.
So
Well, it's
many,
not
many,
just entering employment, Kirk, but I think
yeah.
staying employed,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So as a, st again, we're researchers here, so statistics. So something like 16% of people over 65 years old have some sort of visual impairment, some sort
Hmm.
of low vision situation primarily, and then something like 23% of people over 85 have a visual impairment. So
Hmm.
many people enter our community uh,
Yes.
of legal blindness later in life.
Yes. Yes. We talk about disability being the one community that you can enter at any point in your life.
Right.
So, yeah, it's, life changes in an instant, right, Kirk?
Right.
It's like, as you know, my brother had an accident. At the time he had his accident, he owned his own business.
Uh-huh.
Now he's a quadriplegic with a traumatic brain injury. He fell
Right.
working on a building, and guess what? He's back working
Yeah.
because
Wonderful.
that's what he wanted, and living independently and driving. And I like to have people think, what would you want for yourself?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think all
Well,
of us want to have control of our life, right?
I didn't mean to derail you, but I just wanted to talk about the fact that some states have one agency, some states have two. So if
Absolutely.
you're in if you're in a state with two agencies, you have double the fun. You have double the people to talk to if you're an employer. But I'll
Yeah.
back to you.
Okay. But it's working together. And even if there are two separate agencies, then we work together. And that's the key thing, particularly when we're working with business. And I'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about the net and what we learned from the National Employment Team in our conversation with business. But the vocational rehab system serves a wide range of individuals. So I'm glad you brought up the aging population, Kirk, because we're working with individuals who are transitioning from high school into their first career. And I think a key thing there is helping them understand the careers that are available and connecting them with, what a career looks like from the perspective of a business and what you would need to do to enter that career and grow within it. So what's the appropriate training? You know, what what will get the person the skill sets they need to be productive and have the career of their choice. And we all know a career is a journey, right, Kirk? You never end up where you think where
That's
when
right.
you start. So, preparing people for that and supporting them in being successful. And then, we serve people throughout the age range, again, to the aging population. Yes, vision, hearing, um, mobility. Several things happen when you age. I'm wearing a lovely pair of glasses, but they're there for a reason, right?
Hmm.
So, it's thinking about how you continue to help keep people successful. And we work with a lot of businesses where people have acquired a disability.
Hmm.
They may have had an accident or an illness or an injury, or it's the aging process. And then how do we keep them working? Because these are often very, very talented and experienced people in a workplace. So the businesses want to keep them working. So we have that wide range of services. We also work with veterans, and I want to bring this one up, Kirk, because a lot of people don't know this, but we support veterans who have acquired their disability after service.
Hmm.
The Veterans Administration supports veterans who have a service connected disability, but we work together.
Okay.
And as I said, my brother had an accident, but he's a veteran. So he
Hmm.
receives medical support from our Seattle VA, which has been wonderful. But his voc rehab services come from our public vocational rehab program. So again, it's how you help connect the systems to support the success of the person. And each state looks differently. Does that,
Yeah.
Kirk, did you have something you wanted to add there? Thinking?
No. Mm.
Oh, okay. Okay. So there are a wide range of services for the individual. It's sitting down and building a plan with the person and thinking about what they need. And so we look at, um, I think a key thing is not to get stuck in the medical diagnosis, right?
Hmm.
Because you don't want to make assumptions about what a person can or can't do. That's the biggest barrier that people face in the
Right.
workplace and the one that we need to really talk about more, Kirk. So I appreciate you having this podcast because it allows us to open that dialogue.
Yes.
But it's building around the person. And and again, it could be training, it could be, going to a university, it could be an apprenticeship, an internship, online classes, actual work experience and building from there. We could be
And
looking.
people and young people with disabilities can start receiving vocational related services is at age 14. Is that correct?
It can, yes. Again, the definition of youth varies state to state in terms of how
Okay.
long they may be covered if they're born with a disability or acquire a disability at a young age. So,
I
but
would like
yes.
to thank the Washington Department of Services for the Blind, which was called Commission for the Blind at the time I went to, graduated from Snohomish High School and went off to Whitman College in Walla Walla. Thank you for providing me with the cutting edge technology of the day, which was the IBM Selectric typewriter with the erase ribbon. So I was I was well equipped to head off to college with my slate and stylus to take notes during class and my Perkins Brailler to recopy my notes, and then to type my papers and tests. I had the amazing IBM Selectric provided to me by the Department of Services for the Blind.
Yes. We have a great Department of Services for the
Yeah.
Blind here. Yes. Yeah. So, and again, that's an example of setting someone up for success.
Mhm.
And Kirk, look where you've gone with your career. I mean, I see so many people in their career journey who are now in, they're leading initiatives
Mhm.
and leading the work that we do with business and partnering and really supporting businesses in being successful. And I think, that's one of the key things we want to focus on is how we support talent and retention of that talent. So, on the business side, what we did was, as I said, I started my career here in Washington State, but always had a connection with business and worked with people who were deaf, hard of hearing, deaf blind. So that's where I connected with Kirk early on.
Mhm.
And the goal of the program though was really listening to business. And that's the experience that I carried to my role in vocational rehabilitation. And from there, we built a program working with business and started to connect around the country. And when we started connecting around the country, because you've got to think of 78 different agencies,
Mhm.
15,000 staff, but those of us who were working with businesses started thinking, we're working with the same business. How do we do this better? How do
Mhm.
we do it in a more coordinated fashion so it's not as confusing for the business and we're really understanding what they need and it's not
Yeah.
just putting someone in a job, first job, any job, right? It's helping with
Right.
that career strategy.
And I've heard the term dual customer
Dual
approach. So
customer.
you're serving two customers. You're serving the person with a
Yes.
disability who wants to be employed and live their lives as a employed person earning a salary,
Mm.
and
Yep.
you also serve the business who needs to identify, attract, hire, and retain talent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that's where we started having that conversation. And some of us got together nationally and said, it's great that we have all these national employment conferences. Why don't we invite business to them so we can really hear
Uh-huh.
from the business partners? So 20 years ago, the we had a group of 35 businesses join us, and that
Uh-huh.
included CEOs, it included, HR, it included floor level managers, federal agencies. It included a wide range, small, large businesses from different
Mhm.
geographic areas. And we asked them, we're building careers. You know what careers look like. You know the talent you need. What do we need to do differently to
Mhm.
support you as a customer? And we heard a few really key points. Number one, build the trust. We want to have an open dialogue
Mhm.
about what this all means and how we can best be successful. Build the partnership and build the strategy with the company. So, really listen, right? Don't assume that you know what a company needs, but really listen.
Mhm.
And make it easy to find you because every one of your agencies has a different name.
Right.
And who do I call? And how can it, if I'm a company that has a multi-state presence, I don't want to reinvent the wheel in every location. How do I build a strategy that I can move across the footprint of my business?
Right.
So that's where we started building what we now call the National Employment Team or the NET. You'll
Mhm.
notice we use the NET because business said, VR, virtual reality, what is it? So you know,
national employment team makes it
team.
pretty clear what you're doing. You're a team of people who focus on employment. So it,
Right,
it,
right.
it,
And supporting business as a customer.
right. So
So, and again, we
just
have a
wanted
wide
to
range of
mention another,
services.
yeah, just wanted to mention another study. So this is what you're addressing at the net. So there was a study. It's probably about 20 years old, but they asked vocational rehabilitation counselors what is the greatest barrier to successfully finding employment opportunities for the people you serve. And they asked employers what is the greatest barrier to you working with the vocational rehabilitation system. So they basically asked the same question. What is the greatest barrier? The vocational rehabilitation counselors said employer attitudes, and the employers said lack of understanding of our operational needs. So that is what you're addressing by actually talking to businesses and asking them what their operational needs are.
Yes, yes. So it's that, as you said earlier, we call it the dual customer strategy. Understanding we can build a plan with an individual, but that plan has to reflect what's needed in the workplace. And building a plan with a company,
Mhm.
but also understanding how we grow that plan across their footprint. And if it's a
Could you give us a real world example, a case study of a business that has partnered successfully with the vocational rehabilitation system in the net and what the
well, let's see,
strategies look like? I know there's many.
there's over yeah, there's over 400.
Yeah,
Um,
well,
but
pick one.
well, you saw some of them at the Net Summit. So,
I did.
yeah, let's see, which one would you like to start with? I mean, there was Microsoft, CVS, Walgreens. I mean, where do we want to go? Clean Logic,
Uh,
McLean Industries,
let's talk about McLean.
McLean. Okay.
Yeah, that was new to me, and it's huge. And I wasn't familiar with them until the person from McLean was present for both days of the summit.
Yes. And Jennifer is an incredible person. So Jennifer is the inclusion and belonging manager at McLean. McLean is based in Texas, and it's um, anytime you go to an AM PM mini mart, a
Hmm.
Taco Bell, you name it,
Uh-huh.
they are the company that gets the food supplies to these businesses
Right.
to be able to do their job.
I think she said they have 80 warehouse and distribution centers, something like that.
Yes. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So they look at food distribution, so the warehouse, truck drivers, forklift drivers, a number of opportunities and needs within that company to keep that supply chain moving.
Hmm.
So our Texas team has done a great job building the partnership locally, but we've picked up and we're expanding. In addition to our national employment team, the VR system also supports training centers.
Hmm.
So we have 8 physical training centers around the country, and then several of our agencies for the blind have training centers. So looking at what are the skill sets that this company needs,
Right.
right? Whether it's hands-on, working in a warehouse, driving a truck, forklift, um, customer service, inventory control, you name it. What skill sets do they need, and how do we work with the company to build them?
So
And we've
you can design training specifically
mhm,
to train people to do the jobs that McLean needs to fill.
yes, yes,
Beautiful.
absolutely. So right now, Jennifer is working with some of our training centers, and we're looking at the certificate in warehouse work where the forklift, because you can't train someone to operate a forklift on the floor in a warehouse.
Sure.
A little tricky.
Yeah.
So how do we train someone and then transition them into the workplace? And again, working with that company. CVS is another great example, and you
Uh-huh.
heard about the training center that we've developed with them in Virginia.
Yeah.
Um, CVS, their CEO was at that meeting 20 years ago to help us build the net, and they've been a partner since.
Okay.
And they hire anywhere between 800 and 1,000 people from us a year. And
Beautiful.
they had a need. They have warehouses, they have
Hmm.
retail. They had a real need for pharmacy
Hmm.
techs because anytime you it's not just distributing pharmaceuticals in a retail or a pharmacy, but it's also now that we have the increase in mail order pharmaceuticals, you still have to be a technician. You have to be trained and certified in that skill set. So we started working with them to build a program. They now have a registered apprenticeship program. And
Oh,
we
that's
feed talent into all of those. We have people that work in retail and then decide they want to be a pharmacy tech and go into that field. And again, are growing careers within that company. So again, an example of another long-term
yeah.
partnership.
So just to restate, so for both McLean and CVS and the other 400 companies you're partnering with, you've gone in and carefully analyzed what their jobs are, what the job functions are, what skills are needed, what training is needed, in case some of them require certifications. And the
Mhm,
vocational rehabilitation system in your 8 training centers, you have designed training specifically to prepare people to be successful in jobs at these particular companies. And
mhm.
so that's on the menu of choice for people with disabilities who want to seek employment, and they become um, I don't know what the word is now, client, consumer, customer of vocational rehabilitation. And one of their choices might be to become a pharmacy technician for CVS. And if that is the career path they want, then they can be trained and certified. And that training and certification is funded and provided by the vocational rehabilitation system. That that
Yeah.
a good summary?
Yeah, and I like to say, when we're working with a business customer, think about it as taxpayer dollars back at work in the business, right?
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
we want to work with you to build your talent pipeline and to keep people working. And, we're working with people who want to go to work and they end
Mhm.
up becoming taxpayers in this country.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
you know,
And let's talk about all that the vocational rehabilitation system can bring to the table in supporting employers to successfully employ people with disabilities. I've seen instances where a salary was paid during an on-the-job training period or an internship. I've seen vocational rehabilitation teams come in and analyze a workplace and make recommendations for accommodations. I know personally when I first went to work out of college, I was provided with a refreshable braille display um, by vocational rehabilitation because I needed it for that specific job. So
Mhm.
tell us about all that vocational rehabilitation can do for our employer community.
Well, first it's sitting down and listening to the business. And we learned early on in our conversation with business, look at us as a business and not just an employer. Because in order to understand how someone has a career path within a company, look at the bigger picture. And so HR is always part of that discussion. But, when you're working with companies like Weyerhaeuser, you're also looking at warehouse,
Hmm.
staff and supports and facilities managers, etc. So it's looking at the whole scope of people within a company and the whole range of people that would be engaging in that hiring process and supporting the success of companies. So really looking there, looking at the skill sets that a company, the recruitment and retention strategy that you're using,
Hmm.
and how can we get people into an existing pipeline or help build a pipeline? Disability awareness, just that initial dialogue of what is disability. There's a lot of confusion about that term,
Hmm.
and just really opening the dialogue and answering questions because that attitudinal barrier continues to be um, one of the biggest challenges because we don't talk about it. People are uncomfortable asking the questions, Kirk. So
Hmm.
we'll bring our team in, we'll sit down and have a discussion. And we really want people to feel comfortable. And with one of our company partners, we built a series over a period of time where there were questions by staff, understanding that 1 out of 4 people in this country has a disability and it's the population that any one of us can join at any time, what does that mean?
Right.
And what does it mean to say you're blind? And is everyone who's blind, can they not see? Well, no, some people have usable
Hmm.
levels of vision and there are accommodations and, assistive technology that supports all of us. So
Right.
helping people understand that, I think is really helpful
Hmm.
so that you take away that apprehension or people aren't making assumptions about what someone can and can't do. And that series went on to include, well, we talk a lot about, deafness or hearing loss. We talk about ADHD, neurodiversities,
Hmm.
a big growing topic. What does that mean?
So this was a series of
Just
trainings for the employer,
yeah,
for the
and
staff,
the and
staff at the
yeah,
employee at the
the
company.
staff at the
Yeah.
company, and they
Okay.
asked, and they said, "Please bring in people to talk with us about what this means." And so
Hmm.
we worked collaboratively, DSB and the Division of Voc Rehab here, even set up opportunities for people to see what the assistive technology looks like.
Hmm.
Some people wanted to understand, what does Braille mean? And then you demonstrate large print and how to change your font, and everyone uses it, right?
Yeah.
That's a accommodation that goes mainstream. It's good for everyone.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
when I work with clients, companies who want to employ people with disabilities, I do a discovery process, and I
mhm,
basically do ethnographic research. I interview their key
right.
leaders and
Mhm,
understand what their objectives are, and they
right.
usually have a really good intent, and they usually think too narrowly. For instance, one
Mhm,
large manufacturer thought, I can have a corner of this warehouse and I can have some, blind people doing some packaging,
mhm,
putting some stuff in boxes and putting labels on. And then we started talking about you could have a deaf person in IT, you could have a wheelchair user in HR. Just
mhm,
think that any job of these 2,000 jobs that you have, a person with a disability can do all of these jobs. So just to really
right.
broaden their thinking and
Mhm,
taking people on field trips. I took that team um, to the Walgreens distribution center in Anderson, South Carolina, where
mhm,
about
mhm,
40% of the employees are people with disabilities. And Dr. Jeffrey Moore and his team at Anderson University have tracked the data since they opened that center in 2007. So by any
mhm,
metric, it's their best warehouse and distribution center in the Walgreens system as far as
yeah.
productivity and um, turnover and absenteeism and safety, best safety record, best employee satisfaction, best customer perception, all those things. So to take people there to really broaden their thinking is one thing I do. And then the next thing I do is I call Kathy West-Evans. And I say, for instance, in a case like you mentioned Clean Logic earlier, so Isaac
Mhm,
Shapiro, um,
mhm,
one of the two co-founders of Clean Logic, his mother is blind. His business partner has a daughter who's autistic, and they sincerely wanted to hire people with disabilities, and they were doing so on their own, and they'd hired a number of blind people in their warehouse and distribution center near Philadelphia, and now they're onshoring their manufacturing into the same
mhm.
area, and they think they can hire up to 90 more people with disabilities there. And I called you and told you a little bit about Isaac, what they wanted to do. They're in Pennsylvania, and you connected them with the right resources in the vocational rehabilitation system, and now they are full speed ahead on employing people with disabilities there at their company.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, in Audubon, Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
Had a chance to be there for the ribbon cutting, and
yeah,
it is quite amazing, and there's a wide range of people with and without disabilities working together and collaborating in their production, and,
yeah,
their products are amazing, and the fact that they have Braille on every one of their products
right.
is awesome. It sends a great message, but Isaac and Michael, and their families are just really committed to helping people understand the skill sets.
Right. So for employers out there, if you want to even explore the possibility of being more inclusive of people with disabilities in your workforce, um, get in touch with me and I will put you in touch with Kathy. She will put you in touch with the resources in the state or states in which you operate. And I do want to mention that when I have these conversations with employers and we talk about the capabilities of people with disabilities, they're oftentimes employers have not really worked with people with apparent disabilities or don't
Hmm.
realize they're actually
Right.
working with people with disabilities in their company already, because
Yes.
not 70% of disabilities are non-apparent, and not everyone discloses their disability. But we talk about the strengths. Living every day with a disability gives us ample opportunity to meet and overcome challenges. And that's the way we develop strengths, and that's the way we learn. So we need to be creative problem solvers all the time. So we develop really unique skills there. We need to be creative. We need to be persistent. We need to be resilient. We need to be good communicators. We need to know how to work in teams. So people with disabilities have oftentimes a very unique set of strengths that can really add to a workplace. So I
Hmm.
do always want to emphasize that.
Well, and Kirk, you talked
This is
about,
not an act of charity. This is a
no,
strategic business lever that you can use to, again, supercharge your bottom line.
yeah, and you talked about Walgreens and Randy Lewis, and we worked with them early on in Anderson.
Yeah,
And you're absolutely right. More than 40% of that workforce are individuals with disabilities, highest producing, lowest error rate, lowest turnover,
right.
highest safety rate. I mean, you could go on and on. And, I think the key thing is it contributed to production. There was Randy, Joe Wendover, Deb Russell. I could,
Mhm.
there's a whole host of great partners
Right.
that have been connected with Walgreens, but their market share also went up. Because if you think about in this country, 1 out of 4 people with a disability, think about the individuals, but think about the families.
Yes.
And where do you want to do business?
Hmm.
And that business case, particularly when you're serving and supporting family members, people are going to do business there. We
Right.
choose in our family to do business with companies
Hmm.
that support our population and our family member, whether we're traveling, grocery shopping, gas, whatever. We choose to support those companies.
So you have members of the national employment team in every state. So any
Yes.
employer in these great United States who wants to explore being more inclusive of people with disabilities can connect with the right resources in their state or
Yes.
states if they're multiple. And you mentioned earlier, rather than reaching out to 10 vocational rehabilitation agencies in 10 states, a multi-state company can have one point of contact, can to help educate and build the strategy. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about, which again needs to stop being a best kept secret, is the talent acquisition portal. Great
Okay.
resource if you could talk to us about that.
Yes. Yes. And I want to hit on some of the other services we provide as
Yes,
well.
yes,
But
please.
the talent acquisition portal, or TAP, you see it's an easier acronym again.
Yeah, yeah,
Tap into talent, right?
yeah.
Um, when we started working with companies, the one question they had for us is, where do we find the talent pool?
Uh-huh.
Because we know in companies that there are a lot of people with disabilities already working there, but they haven't disclosed because they're afraid of how they would be seen by managers, coworkers, etc. So, when we started seeing laws like the ADA, in the Rehab Act, there's Title V, which is Section 503 for federal contractors. It was really about educating business. How do you help create a culture? How do you help create a pipeline where people with disabilities are coming into your workplace and create a culture within your workplace that supports them? So
Mm.
it was simple things, Kirk, like, there was a lot of confusion with the Americans with Disabilities Act. What does this all mean? Well, one of the things that wasn't required, but that just made sense was just post notification, right?
Mm.
If you're a person with a disability and you're interviewing or working here and you have a need, who do you ask? Right? Open up that dialogue and help that person be successful to meet your needs while you're supporting their needs. So the talent acquisition portal, what we found was we were looking at recruitment software and none of it was accessible.
Mm.
So if we've got candidates who use Braille or large print or some other form of
Right.
accessing information, how do we build a portal that does that? And
Mhm.
we ended up connecting with a disability managed nonprofit out of San Diego, disabled persons, abled in capital letters.
Mhm.
Um, and they said, sure, let's build something together. So we brought in candidates, individuals with disabilities, we brought in business partners, we brought in a number of people and said, What do we need to do?" And that's really how we grew the talent acquisition portal or tab. And what we did was we put in a resume builder, and businesses told us things like, well, a lot of times people speak a second language, which could be a benefit, or they have a
Right.
security clearance, which could be a benefit. Let us know. So we
Mhm.
started building those pieces in. People can indicate their geographic preference. So if a business is looking for a candidate in a specific area, they can search on that. Where's your availability? Where can you go to work? Maybe it's not even the state you're currently living in, but you're looking to relocate or would be open to relocate. So building in features like that and enabling the people who are coming onto the portal are invited by either a vocational rehab agency. We've partnered with the VA, so Veterans Readiness and Employment, their program. We've partnered with Social Security, so we have several employment networks. We've got 7,500 staff that are referring candidates, and we have over 40,000 candidates on the portal. So when
Wow.
a
Last number I heard was 28,000. So you're
yeah,
you're growing by leaps and bounds. It's
growing
fabulous.
by leaps and bounds.
So
Yeah, and people,
40,000 detailed resumes of people
yeah.
with disabilities who are eager to work and have the backing of the vocational rehabilitation system to help um, work with employers to make successful employment outcomes for those individuals.
Yes, and the platform continues to grow, so as remote work started becoming more prevalent,
Mhm.
we're able to, put the features in where people can search for remote opportunities. And,
So
so
if I'm
there's a
an
lot of
employer,
features. It's
yeah,
it's
if I'm an employer listening to this, how do I get access to those 40,000 resumes?
well, you can contact Kirk or I, or you could go on to www.tapability.org.
Uh-huh. And do I become a member? Do I register? Do I pay a fee?
Yeah,
How do employers access the resumes?
so for on the employer side, what you're going to be able to do is you'll be able to count the number of people who are applying for jobs. You can use the platform to search. We host virtual events on the
Uh-huh.
platform. Everyone coming in has voluntarily self-disclosed that they're an individual with a disability. So if you're a
Right.
federal contractor, you know that. But for a business, reach out and connect with our partner at disabledpersons.com. So either Mike or Chris Corso, I'm going to
Uh-huh.
call them out
Yep.
here,
Yep.
and they will help you get set up. We looked at what we would need just to break even. We're both nonprofit organizations, so you can have an annual unlimited posting and a virtual career for $7,500.
Wow.
So it's the
Bargain.
least expensive tool on the market.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah, and great talent. We've seen people have great opportunities and make great connections. And for individuals, they may not have ever known about those opportunities with a company, and for companies, finding easy access to that talent pool. Um, and knowing that if they have supports, just ask, you
Mhm.
know. I wanted to talk about, when we're working with companies, and this brings this to mind. Um, if a company has a question, we've gone out and done worksite assessments with companies. We'll look at, how do you make a work site? Um, more accessible. When we started working here in this state with T-Mobile,
Uh-huh.
Kirk,
Yeah.
that's a while ago.
Yeah.
But when John Stanton was
Yeah.
the CEO of T-Mobile, now he owns the Mariners. Go Mariners. Um,
Fellow Whitman College alum.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. So it's a small world, but
Yeah.
one of the things that they looked at was, making phone packages more accessible, and how do we make our technology accessible so it doesn't leave people behind. So
Hmm.
they were the first phone company that offered individuals who were deaf to have a text only package. You didn't have to
Mm.
buy voice.
Mm.
And, it seemed logical because texting was an
Yeah.
accommodation built for deaf people that's gone mainstream.
Right.
So, it's working with companies to look at those solutions for a workplace, and finding that when you find a solution for a workplace, it benefits everyone. Like, if Randy probably shared with you the story at Walgreens, when you pick and pack in a warehouse, it's a quick process, right?
Right.
And they had little print up there for the name of the products,
Hmm.
and one of the recommendations someone made was put a picture.
Yeah.
And guess what? It increased everyone's productivity.
Right.
It was easier to make that quick connection. So again, it's how can we bring that expertise, whether it's assistive technology, a rehabilitation engineer, an OT or a PT, which we have on staff. How do we bring that support to a company to really look at the accessibility and productivity of a workplace, and how we can support that?
Right. So I think every good employer wants to provide their employees with the tools and the techniques and the training um, they need to be successful and productive in their job. And depending on a person's impairment, whether it be visual, hearing, mobility, cognitive, there are special tools, techniques, and technologies specifically designed to help us be as productive and successful as we can be in the workplace. So that's what vocational rehabilitation can do, is come in, look at your jobs, look at the work site, make recommendations of tools, technologies, techniques, training that you can put in place so that your employees with disabilities can thrive and be successful, productive employees.
Right. And you talked about, in addition to the consultation and support, the ability to really get people into the right training,
Hmm.
supporting internships, maybe on the job training. We've done that.
Yeah.
We've worked with companies and have done internships and helped support people that have, they're just hired directly out of those
Yeah.
internships into companies. And again, it's looking at the match.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, this time has flown by, as it always does when I get to visit with you. But want to let people know how to get in touch with you and the National Employment Team. So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, we can give them the email address. They can reach out
Y-
to you. You know how to reach
Yeah.
out to me.
Yep.
But yeah, my email address is kwest, like north, south, east,
Yeah. Yeah.
hyphen Evans, EVANS,
Right.
at CSAVR.org.
CSAVR.org.
VR.
Right.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
am Kirk Adams at drkirkadams.com. I'm also on LinkedIn every day. Kirk Adams, PhD on LinkedIn. And so please reach out to either Kathy or myself if you have any level of interest in understanding how you can supercharge your bottom line by being inclusive of people with disabilities in your workforce.
Yeah. We've got talent, right, Kirk? And I'm
Absolutely.
on LinkedIn along with you. So,
All right.
if that's the easiest way, let's get the talent.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kathy. Looking forward to talking
Thank
to
you.
you again very soon. And you
Yes.
enjoy the beautiful fall day here in sunny Seattle, Washington today.
Yeah. Kirk, don't tell people it's sunny in Seattle. No.
Okay, it's raining.
It's raining.
Okay,
All
take,
right.
take good care.
Thank you so much, Kirk. It's always great working with you. I appreciate your partnership.
Yeah, thanks. And
Take
we'll see you
care.
next month on my monthly live stream webinar, which is the last Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. Pacific time. supercharge your bottom line, disability inclusion.